Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Based Network. I'm your host, Israel Populum. Today, we're going to be talking about the geopolitical chess game that's happening right now in Venezuela. What actually is the goal of America? And we're going to get into this very soon. First things first, if you want to see me crash out and condemn, America's intervention, because I'm pretty someone who's anti-interventionist, I'm anti-regime change. I don't think America should be playing the, guardian of the planet. We shouldn't be, Alan the alien from Invincible, okay? We're not here to save the world. We're here to make America greater. That's the first thing. But, that's opinion. You can look in my other video about this. We're talking about chessboard strategy here. We're talking about political game. What's America's goal? So if you want to see me crash out, go check that video out. First things first I want to talk about is blatant propaganda that's going on right now. And a lot of people kind of forget that propaganda exists, right? People forget that a lot of the political wills are manufactured. So that's something that we have to talk about there. Anyone saying this is about drugs or about democracy don't know how politics work, nor pay attention to history. And if that's you, it's okay. I'm here to help you. You can watch this. If you get triggered for me saying that, I would just shut off the video now because I don't want to spike your cortisol because we're trying to looks max here. 2026 looks max. We're going to look at a video here, my fat ass. We're looks maxing 2026, okay? And no more cortisol spikes. Let all the cortisol spikes go to me, because I'm going to be the crash out. You calm down, okay? So I don't want you to freak out. Take a seat if this is going to be hard-hitting for you. But it's not about democracy. It's not about drugs. Get that out of your head. That is pure propaganda, particularly with the democracy angle. We see this constantly. A lot of people are sharing videos of people celebrating in Venezuela. And all of that's fine. If I was a Venezuelan, I would be cheering too. I wouldn't mind a big bad America to come in and fix all our problems, get rid of, the evil dictator. Like, imagine if during the Revolutionary War, Agartha came in flying saucers and started blasting the British ships and abducted, King James. I would be like, let's go. Let's go. We don't have to use our own men. We don't have to fight our own. We don't have to create a revolution here. And we can just come in and just take power because this big bad other country did it. Great. And that's great for Venezuelans. Good for you. I'm not going to here to rain your parade. If you're happy about this because you're a Venezuela or you're someone from South America who is very against Chinese dominance, communist dominance in South America, 100%, I understand that. But it's not about democracy in the sense of these people getting their own self-determination. It's about democracy and free trade. So that's the first thing I want to talk about here. It's about free trade. Donald Trump, after the strikes in Venezuela and the abduction of Nicolás Maduro, got up, gave a speech, and essentially said, hey, look, the United States is going to be the government of Venezuela as of now until they find some puppet to come in and take over.
We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it.
And very specifically, he's going to allow American oil companies to come in and build infrastructure to extract oil from Venezuela and to boost the American economy because, to strengthen the petrodollar. Now, strategically, it makes sense if we're trying to do that, but that's the reason, okay? That's part of the reason. There's multiple reasons here. So it's not about drugs. It's not about democracy, okay? And Donald Trump said that explicitly. He is telling you the game. A big piece of advice I got from one of my managers, Jonathan, love you, bro. He told me, when a girl talks, you got to listen, right? If you like a girl, and she'll tell you the game. If she likes you back, she'll tell you how to get her, right? So the same thing here, the same strategy applies here. Donald Trump is telling you the game. He's telling you, hey, I'm coming in for oil. It has nothing to do with drugs. It has nothing to do with democracy. Specifically, this is important because geopolitically, Venezuela and a lot of other countries in South America have been bolstering their relationships with Russia and with China. And as Donald Trump also said, he wanted to bolster the Monroe Doctrine, which essentially says that America has hegemonic control over our hemisphere, or should, and we shouldn't allow foreign countries to gain control or dominance in our sphere. So again, this is geopolitical. This is a chess move. This is an action, not a reaction. And that's important to say because there's a big difference there. A reaction is, oh, Maduro is so bad, we must take him out. Or, hey, Maduro is sending drugs here, we must take him out. Action is, we want to take Maduro out because Venezuela has the highest oil reserves out of the entire planet. And we want access to that. And we also don't want China or Russia to have unfettered access to that. That's an action, not a reaction. So it's very important to understand that and understand the difference between those two things. So I'm going to talk about Russia influence in Venezuela first, because I think it's a little less important, particularly because they're pretty preoccupied with the Ukraine war. But Russia for decades has been cultivating influence in Venezuela, part as a broader counter-U.S. dominance in the Western Hemisphere. Again, talking about the Monroe Doctrine. You know, they've provided billions of dollars of loans and military support to Venezuela. You know, the Wagner Group has been there, you know, deploying long-range bombers. And it's important to have this as a strategic ally for Russia because it's outside of the Western sphere of control, right? So sanctions and these types of things are less effective when Russia has a wider net to grab from. This is actually pretty important too, the actual way that America came in and basically abducted Maduro out of the darkness of the night. Because again, this strikes fear in foreign countries. It strikes fear in Russia and in China and in North Korea. North Korea just did test strikes, you know, projecting their power because they felt a little bit of insecurity because, hey, if we could do that to Nicolás Maduro, we could do it to Kim Jong-un as well. Now, would we know because they have nukes and they don't have oil for us to come and take? Besides the point. But again, it's important to understand the actual reaction. And you best see that with Kim Jong-un in North Korea after doing the test directly after, too. So again, that's all strategic. That's a way to project power. Now, if we continue with China, China has a vested interest in bolstering their political control in Latin America in general. And their investments have somewhat paid off. There was a survey in 2018 where they did a study in Latin America and their view on China, and 55% of people said that they had a good or very good view of China. And that's important because, again, China is a one-party state that is focused on the future. So when they're doing things now, it's for the future. Their 100-year plan is how they beat us, right? So when they start getting more political control in Latin America, it's important to pay attention to that and see where it's gone, right? If you look at China, when their Belt and Roads Initiative, they've invested a lot of money in South America. The China Development Bank and the China Export-Import Bank has increased, technically loaned over $140 billion between 2005 and 2018. That's 5 times more than the U.S. have done in that same time period. The United States is scared of China's control in South America. China's Belt and Road Initiative has built, I think they currently have like 50 ports that they're currently building right now. And again, with ports, that's dual use. That can be a port one day and a military installation the next. So again, geopolitically, it's important to pay attention to these regions and pay attention to China's strategic control. They're doing the same thing in Africa right now, which is something that we should be doing, but China's doing it instead. Another big question in the region, why I think that this strike is a dual-edged sword, the biggest conversation that's happening here is not really with Venezuela. That's part of it, right? That's something that's happened today. So obviously people are talking about it in the news, but the overall arcing story, the more important place that we're looking at is Taiwan. And that's why I think that this move is a double-edged sword, because on one end, we get to block Chinese influence in Latin America. We get to block certain natural resources from China. I think they gain 4 to 6% of their global oil purchases come from Venezuela, and that's around 80% of Venezuela's exports as well. And that number can be even higher because a lot of tactics they use is they'll send the oil free because it pays off certain debts, because China has invested a lot in Venezuela, gave them a lot of loans, and so that's the way to pay it off. And sometimes they'll sell it. They'll sell the oil, and it says it comes from a different country in order to kind of get around some of the sanctions we have imposed. And again, this type of attack projects strength across the world because it tells other countries that America is willing to attack your leaders. America is willing to engage militarily, and that's a good look for America. But again, with a double-edged sword, is that it's a rhetorical tool that America has now given to China with Taiwan. And a lot of people already know this, but China is looking at Taiwan like a motherfucking fat guy looking at McDonald's, okay? And trust me, I know the look. This gives China a rhetorical tool to allow themselves to invade in Taiwan and take over the region because America did it. Now, the question is China willing to go to war over Taiwan with America? Because Taiwan is very important strategically for the United States, particularly in the new technological age that we're in. AI is Pandora's box. AI is the new nuclear bomb. And what I mean by that is it disrupts the political order. Because with the nuclear bomb, it allowed America to have the biggest on the block. Sorry to put it vulgarly, but essentially it allowed America to have the ultimate trump card, to be able to have the ultimate negotiation tactic, to say, hey, at the end of the day ends and we can nuke the shit out of you. And that's why countries scramble to have nuclear weapons, because when you have a nuclear weapon, there comes a mutually assured destruction argument, and it kind of dispels that ability for America just to push you around, or any country with a nuclear bomb to push you around. That's why Iran wants a nuclear bomb so bad, or wants to at least project they have the ability to produce one, because they're scared of Israel and America basically pushing them around because they don't have nukes. And we can do basically whatever we want. But if Iran got a nuke, instantly, we would have to be more careful about what we do. Same thing with Russia. We're pretty careful how we act with Russia, or we're pretty careful how we act with China because they have nukes. AI is the new version of that. And now that we're struggling and we're battling technologically to see who can develop the stronger AI, we're essentially in an AI Cold War. And in order to heat that up, the fuel of the Cold War are data centers. And what do the data centers need? They need chips. The United States' grand strategy is to deny strategic influence to rivals like China and Russia with Venezuela. Another thing is to reassert U.S. dominance on the Western Hemisphere, bolstering the Monroe Doctrine, which is one of our oldest doctrines, and it does make sense politically. And also, too, is to secure leverage on the wider U.S. versus China fight. So back to the AI Cold War. This is what America is scared about and what we should be scared about. Because, again, this is the new nuclear bomb. This is Pandora's box. If a country can obliterate you with a laptop, not really like that, they need big data centers, they need stronger AIs, all that stuff, but in terms of not needing overwhelming military dominance, not needing overwhelming weaponry, they can destroy you with an AI. That's very scary. And that is the new nuclear bomb. That is the new disruptor. And we're going to fight towards that. China is tightening their control over the silver supply. China controls 60 to 70% of the silver supply globally. Silver is one of the most important materials for semiconductor construction. That happens primarily in Taiwan, and we need semiconductors in order to create chips and the types of technologies that we need for the AI Cold War. If China is controlling their silver supply, again, 60 to 70% globally, there's also other materials like gallium, which China controls 98 to 99% of the global supply. Gallium is extremely important in advanced semiconductor construction. Radio frequency components and defense systems like radar, electronic warfare, and satellite communication. It's not just like, it's very important for this type of construction. So when China has control of these precious materials, they're tightening their control over these. And now they're looking towards Taiwan, which is the biggest constructor of these chips. This is very scary strategically for America. That's why America is being more aggressive politically, because they want to project power, because this is a scary time for America. And essentially, we're hedging our bets by invading in Venezuela and getting control of that oil, because it allows America to, number one, take away a chip from China, because again, China gets some imports from Venezuela. But then also, more importantly, this kind of allows America to have access to precious resources when this new global order gets established. Because there will be a new global order. When this AI Cold War finally pops, and when the technology enters an age where now there's the new global superpowers, hopefully America will be there, and I think we will be, because we're one of the bigger players with AI. We need to make sure that our resources are established so that we don't have to militarily intervene when it gets more risky due to AI. When the new global order is established, when the new biggest players are established, when they're hard and they're there, pause, America can't just go and intervene, because that might actually allow other countries to come and attack us, right? The new global order is established. America must be more careful when they do these types of military interventions, because we don't know what it'll end up being. So as of right now, when America is still the most dominant country militarily around the world, we must make our actions now and secure these valuable resources so that when the new global order is established, we don't risk getting into a big AI fight over these resources. Because then there goes with the mutually assured destruction. So if we have Venezuela under our control, when push comes to shove in the future, again, when the new global order is established and the new nuclear bomb, AI, creates a new mutually assured destruction, we need to make sure that these resources are readily available. And we don't have to actually fight for it to continue being competitive with these foreign countries. Because again, China controls the gallium supply. China controls a big portion of the silver supply. It's super important for semiconductors, which is the fuel for this AI Cold War. Another thing is actual fuel, which is why we're going to Venezuela. It helps our economy a little bit because it decreases prices on other stuff. But then it makes you think, why does America want Greenland? Why does Trump want Greenland so bad? It's the same reason. It's the valuable, precious resources they have, and we need that. And if we can take it before the new AI control comes in, or the new AI global order comes in, then it allows us to take those resources without risking getting into a conflict with this new AI warfare. So again, be careful of the propaganda. What's actually happening, and not falling into the political propaganda for low IQ individuals who go, war bad, war only good when defending poor people, therefore war good, right? Those are the low IQ people who can get tricked by a fucking Facebook video of Venezuelans crying on the street. Let's not fall into the propaganda, right? Let's not go into fake narratives of democracy and drugs and blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about geopolitically why America is doing what they're doing, because I think that's more interesting and more important to get a full, broad understanding of what's happening politically. Let's talk about propaganda real quick, right? Propaganda doesn't always have to be fake, okay? The video you're watching doesn't have to be fake. You have to think, why am I being shown this video now? That's how you look at propaganda. It's not, this is an AI video, or this is taken out of context. It's like, this could be in context, but why am I seeing it now? Why is the camera there? Why is this blowing up? When you understand that, you can actually get a good view of propaganda and see the actual footnotes of why that's being put there. When you're being shown videos of Venezuelans cheering on the streets, the reason they do that is to bolster the claim that they're doing this for democracy. When Trump said very explicitly, this has nothing to do with democracy. It has to do with oil. The problem with regime change, because that's what we're seeing here, it's a blatant regime change. Trump said we're literally taking over Venezuela. We took that shit, we stole that shit. That's what he said, okay? When we look at someone like Saddam Hussein, right, where everyone realizes the guy's terrible, and when the guy gets deposed, they're cheering on the street, and they knock down his statue. Remember that? You know, that's propaganda. Well, the people really hate him. Yes, that can be true, but why are you seeing that? It's to bolster America's claim that they're doing this for democracy when they're actually doing it for regime change and global dominance. It has nothing to do with democracy, has nothing to do with drugs. And what happened with Iraq? Is this amazing, beautiful city on the hill that's shining with democracy because we deposed a dictator? Is it? And what's going to happen with Venezuela? And when Venezuela fails, if it does or if it doesn't, I think it will. If you look at history, if you pay attention to how shit works, when it fails, and there's another war that we have to get into because of democracy and drugs and blah, 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 these are low IQ individuals who are fucking cattle because they are being farmed for their votes and farmed for their engagement in order to justify military engagement. These cattle come in and they go, yay! Yay! We're going to do this. Let's go! Because you're fucking dumb. And you don't know how shit works. And you just cheer on because the orange man said so. Now, again, if you're a Venezuela, like I understand if you're a South American and you're scared of communist control of your countries and you're a Venezuelan and you don't want Nicolás Maduro being your leader and you like what's happening here, you know, I don't think you're really dumb. I think you're smart because you're pro-Venezuela and you want the best to happen for Venezuela. The question is, what's best for America? And is another regime change war spending billions of dollars, because Trump said that we would pay them back for their infrastructure that these oil companies do, again, pleading to the special interests who give him millions of dollars, saying, oh yeah, they're going to come in, we're going to make some money, but we can't do anything for Americans in America. Where's American infrastructure, huh? You're investing all this money in Venezuelan infrastructure. What about American infrastructure? Why are our cities f***ing terrible, filled with trash and homeless people and crime? But we do nothing about that federally. We don't do anything about giving money federally to states and to bolster, police presence and all that stuff. We know nothing about that. Zero. Zilch. Maybe we'll send the National Guard in to get shot in D.C. Rest in peace. But when it comes to foreign countries, let's go. Why? Because the special interests said so. And that's another thing, right? This is a war that the special interests have been hounding after. They want this war. They've been projecting and they've been talking about this for years, right? And I didn't even get into the Israel angle with this whole thing because they're also happy about this happening. Why? Because again, it helps them strategically. That can be a video for another day. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna cut it short. I'm gonna cut it out here. If you have any questions, right, drop them in the comments. If you think I'm crashing out or I'm insane or I'm being contradictory, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to, talk about it there. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Base Network. I'm your host, Israel Populum. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. You know what to do. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.